Good day, welcome to week 2 of Building and Environmental Systems. The topic we're going to cover today is BCA Green Mark. So in the past 1 or 2 months, we have experienced periods where the weather was unbearable. It was really warm and humid. And Singapore itself has seen a new high, right, for the temperature. So climate change is real. Right, it's not a hoax, and it's an issue that we have been grappling with for the past decades. So the question for us as designers to think about is what do buildings have to do with climate change, right? How can we improve the situation through design? Because if you think about when the weather is very warm, right, or it's very humid, what's the first thing you think about? Oh, I need to on the fan. Or I need to go into an aircon room to take refuge. So is taking refuge in an aircon room solving the problem? Actually not so, because you are basically transferring the heat somewhere else. Out of sight, out of mind. But a properly designed building, right, should make use of both passive and active system, right, and achieve a balance in order to tackle the issue of climate change. To resolve any issue, we need proper planning and also action. So Singapore has a vision for a low carbon future, and here you see the charts of the actions being taken. So now we have a commitment towards 2030 to reduce carbon usage and the carbon footprint through mitigation. I think there are 3 main steps or 3 categories that are listed here: transformations in the economy, industry, and society, adopt advanced low carbon technologies, and effective international collaboration. Right. So come 2050, we are aiming to push the aspirations even further. Right. So it's a step-by-step approach, but always improving. Here you see Singapore's carbon emissions profile. Total emissions in 2017 stands at 52.5 mt, with industry being the sector's largest contributor at around 60%. Right, and then transport, household, buildings form the remaining 40%. So for the remaining 40%, you can see on the right, buildings take up a considerable bit of that, right? So buildings are one of the key mitigation strategies for climate change. Here you see a chart of our green building efforts so far, the actions, the tangible steps being taken. So a very important part is BCA's Green Mark scheme, which was launched in 2005, and the first Green Building Master Plan was launched in 2006. And environmental sustainability and legislation was legislated for new buildings in 2008. Okay, so in 2009, second Green Building Master Plan, and in 2012, existing buildings are legislated for environmental sustainability. All right, in 2014, the third Building Master Plan, and 2018, the SLE, Super Low Energy Building Program, was launched. Right, bringing us towards Green Mark 2021. So the Singapore Green Building Master Plan in the next lab is important to meet our climate change commitments. So what have we achieved to date? More than 40% of Singapore's buildings GFA is green. And the Green Mark scheme has been used as a reference or a standard for more than 16 countries, for more than 300 overseas projects, and 87% of them involve Singapore-based firms. Right, so there is a business to be done as well. And the average EUI for buildings have improved by 11% since 2008. So the question is, how can we do better? in terms of the energy usage, the carbon footprint of the building, a very large part or a sizable part of it comes from the energy usage of the building itself. So a super low energy building, in short we call it SLEB, right? This is a term that you will be seeing quite frequently in the future. This is very important. So it's also important to understand what makes a super low energy building. That's the first point. And how do we make technological know-hows available in order to encourage innovations? And are there opportunities other than climate change mitigations? Those are the important questions. So what are the components of SLEBs? On the left, you see the typical building energy consumption profile. 60% will go to ACMB. 15% will go to lighting. Lift and escalator 10%, ventilation 10%, others the remaining 5%. Right? So you can see how aircon and lighting takes up a considerable 3/4 weightage of the energy consumption. So how does the SLEB, what are the features that address this energy consumption profile? Firstly, we have passive strategies like solar shading, natural ventilation, facade. How do we use daylighting? 2, we have active strategies. How do we make the ACMB system even more efficient? And how do we properly design for it? And how do we design it in a smart way for this ACMB to be maximum, to perform at maximum efficiency? Alright, and how do we use artificial lighting in a very smart way, efficient way? Third, we have energy management, because now we have data. So building automation, smart control, plug load management is possible, right? Because we can make use of sensors to read and assess whether certain spaces are overutilized, underutilized, or are there certain periods of the day that the energy usage can actually be reduced. Okay, so all these decisions or all these automation can be made via data and sensors, right? This is the IoT, the Internet of Things, and this is actually quite prevalent when we're designing office spaces already. Okay, 4, we have renewable energy. So roof and site optimizations. We got to understand photovoltaic technologies. How do we place them? How do we angle them? Right? How do we tap the energy? What's the space required? How do we connect it to the grid? So what are the energy savings over a building life cycle for SLEBs? The basis is 2005 as a baseline, right? Because we always need a point of comparison. So for SLEB, it performs at 60% over the 2005 baseline. Okay, so there is for green building, there's always a cost premium at the start. You're paying more at the start. So this is a very typical calculation. How much energy are you going to save per year? Right, and if you calculate these savings versus the cost premium, how many years does it take to break even? Okay, then after that, you're going to start to reap the benefits. Yeah, so that's how the calculation is usually carried out. So you can see for the capital investment put into SLEBs, the maximum payback is projected to be, I think, close to 6 years. Right, and the earliest is around 2 years. Right, thereafter you can have your net savings per GFA. Now let's take a look at Green Mark 2021. Green Mark 2021 has redesigned the Green Mark system into something that's modular, so which allows a kind of a plug and play approach. And the modules is also consistent with, say, the design concepts of DFMA, plug and play, flexibility, right? So there are 6 modules that you see here, right? Each of them is given an abbreviation of 2 letters and a color. Okay. The learning objective for this session, firstly, you should be able to describe the Green Mark scheme in your own words. Why is it necessary? What is it composed of? What are these modules? And what does each module actually do? LO2, and use these 6 modules as a framework to analyze a building. Okay, so you use this session to understand the framework, which will make your subsequent site visit more meaningful because you have a certain lens for which to analyze a building. You get to see the pros and cons, the success and failures of a building. LO3 is reframe existing assumptions and matrix system. Okay, so this one is a bit higher level, right, which involves a bit of critical thinking on your part. In the industry itself, Green Mark is accredited by SGBC, and there are 4 types of professional. Green Mark AP, Green Mark AAP, which is advanced accredited professionals. Then you have Green Mark Facility Management, right, and Green Mark Advanced Facilities Management, right. So there are 2 parts. The first 2 generally covers design, and the lower 2 covers the operational lifespan of a building. So we were looking at Singapore, right? Now let's take a step back and look at the globe. The overall temperature of the globe is projected to increase by 4 degrees Celsius by 2100. Okay, so something has to be done. The United Nations have come together and devised a plan and a set of actions to be taken to tackle the issue of climate change. And for Singapore, because we are sitting very near the equator, practically we are looking at even up to 8 degrees Celsius increase in temperature. So in Singapore, we have the Green Master Plan, SG Green Plan, which the entire country is very supportive of, and we've moved and progressed as a country together, right, for the past couple of years. And some key areas of focus: city and nature, green government, energy reset, sustainable living, green economy, and resilient future. Right, I think these points should not be alien to you because you see it almost on a daily basis in the newspapers, in the news, or even around the initiatives you see in your neighborhood, right? And Green Mark 2021 is a key driver that pushes beyond large for our buildings to bring us closer to nature, to blend with nature, and how to see how the built environment and nature can be integrated, right? So large is the initiative for greening a building, right? So it goes beyond that, meaning we don't stop at just introducing a lot of vegetations and green walls and stuff. There's much more to be done. Okay, so raising the sustainability standards of our building, we are aiming for 80% green GFA, 80% of new developments to be super low energy from 2030, and 80% EE energy efficiency from 2005. So this one is like pretty dated already. I think we have been pretty successful in that area. Yep. And yeah, we're always pushing to improve ourselves, and more initiatives will be announced soon. Okay, so you guys are going to be part of this green building master plan, right? We are all in this together. So as mentioned just now, Green Mark 2021 is been redesigned into a modular system that allows plug and play, allows flexibility, allows mix and match. Okay, so the logo itself have been simplified. So I think you guys can just take a while and run through the logos, right, to see whether it works for you. It's color coded. It's abbreviated. We love our abbreviations. And there is a logo. There's a graphic to it. Right? See whether you can figure it out. So, okay, let's run through it. So the first one is EE. By the lightning, you would know that it deals with things related to energy or electricity, right? So IN, you can see that it's almost like a chip, right? It's like a computer chip. So there is a certain like coordination, transmission of data and stuff like that, right? So there's a certain intelligence that we want our building to be. Okay, HW, you see the heart, and there's a heartbeat, right? So you know that it deals with things related to health, related to wellness, related to well-being. Okay, CN, I think it's quite obvious because they wrote CO2 there, right? I don't know how else to present carbon dioxide in a graphical manner, or carbon in a graphical manner, right? So this is about reducing carbon footprint. Okay, the fifth one is MT. You see two cogs, right? How to keep the machine running? How do you service the machine? How do you maintain the machine, right? So this point is about maintainability. And the last one, you see trees, resilience, right? How do we make our building resilient? How do we make our built environment, not limited to buildings, even the space between our buildings, resilient, right? It's all part of this Green Mark 2021, which is an umbrella framework for our next lab. Okay, so for us, actually it's a familiar rating tool format, right? It's just regrouped, right? But for you guys, you are seeing it for the first time. But some things I think shouldn't be alien to you. You should have heard it quite a couple of times when you are working on your DS projects, right? So Green Mark 2021 is the lever that facilitates high performance and climate actions, right? It's aligned to wider green plan and SGB MP's 80-80-80 target by 2030. It is the driver of the construction ITM to be smart, productive and green, and it supports and prepares the value chain for the future green economy. Okay, this is very important word, green economy of the future, right? Because there is quite a bit of money inside that's running around. Right? Later we can see that in the subsequent slides. Yep, so we have seen this in the first session. Okay, when you are designing a building, when a building is being built, it's not just, I think when we are doing design, you're just looking at the site itself and maybe the context around the site, right? But actually it involves much more things than that, right? The building and the site and the design is one small component of the big ecosystem of the built environment, right? Or the entire country, okay? In this case, because there's a built environment and a natural environment. Right, so we need to be aware of these value chains. So key features of Green Mark 2021 is an all-in-one framework. Previously, Green Mark was separated into new buildings, existing buildings, non-residential buildings, residential buildings. Right, so now it's all-in-one framework. There's flexibility for plug and play. So you can use the Green Mark modules, right, to design a way to achieve the super low energy building. Okay, it's no longer just one. It's no longer just a scoring system, put it that way. It used to be like there is like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and then whether I'm going for this, I'm gonna tick it and provide a calculation and how many points I score. Right now, there's more flexibility. I can do a plug and play and design a scheme for the client. Okay, it's simple, flexible, and smart rating system. Okay, point 3, we're going to talk about that later, is globally relevant and leading, right? Because it firstly, it pushes the boundary of sustainability. And why so? Because it's aligned to the UN SDGs. Right. So what is SDG? We're going to talk about that later on. So, aligned with international green building movement, finance taxonomies, and global real estates reporting platforms. Right. So it's not something that we are doing in isolation in Singapore. Right. It is aligned with what the entire United Nations is doing. Right. And we are trying to push and be at the forefront, pushing the boundaries at the forefront. Okay, this is an elaboration of how it's all streamlined into one. Just for your awareness, this is more pertaining to practitioners, current practitioners like us, to know what's the difference, right? But I think for you can fall back on the previous slide, right, and to approach Green Mark 2021 from scratch. Okay, alignment to global sustainability reporting systems, sustainable finance taxonomies, TCFDs, emphasis on UN SDGs, right, and green estate reporting frameworks. Okay, so by the international definition, Green Mark will retain its focus aligned with the wider sustainability issues, with a strong emphasis on energy efficiency. Okay, so the WGBC Healthy Framework Principles, all of these have been taken account of: protection of health, prioritization of comfort, harmony with nature, positive behavior, social value creation, action for climate change. All of these principles have been thought about, incorporated within Green Mark 2021. And this is SDGs, UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, right? So this one, I think I've seen them in a campus, right? Yeah, I guess they're all over many places, so it shouldn't be alien to you as well. So these are the 17 sustainable development goals that United Nations have came together to brainstorm and to decide, right, for the built environment. So Green Mark 2021 is designed in such a way, right? You can, because it's 6 modules, so you can see that which are the SDGs that are relevant to each module. It provides assurance to our real estate industry for ESG reporting and global benchmarking, right? So ESG reporting, right? Okay, let's talk about practical matters. So ESG reporting is actually quite an important part of business, and is increasing in importance for the past couple of years, right? Because businesses needs to exercise and demonstrate responsibility and sustainability, right? It's no longer an option, right? They must demonstrate that. Okay, so there's a lot of money inside this legislation. So this Green Mark itself provides assurance to our real estate industry for this reporting, right, and to benchmark versus global standards. Okay, so actually the vision for Green Mark is to become like an international standard, a regional standard. Yeah. So for example, if you are, say, you have a project in, say, Indonesia, or even, okay, let's say you have a project in Indonesia, you can say that, okay, if you are questioned like, what is your benchmark for ESG reporting, then you can say that, it's Green Mark 2021, and this will be a standard that is that gives assurance and is accepted by the industry, right? And of course, if you go further south to, say, Australia, or if you are practicing in the UK, right, then because these countries have developed their own standard, so hopefully it can be a either or, right? But I think most of the time, let's say in Australia or in UK, they will use their own standards, right? And Green Mark so far is used around the region in the ASEAN in the ASEAN umbrella and slightly beyond, right? Hopefully it can be better utilized, widely utilized in future. Okay, so Green Mark ratings. So how do you rate a building? The common landing is a super low energy building, right? Is a energy efficiency focus series with robust holistic underpinnings from mandatory requirements. So this is the mandatory requirements, meaning the baseline will be a super low energy building. Okay, because previously, the table at the bottom, right? Previously we have Green Mark compliance, then we have Green Mark Gold Plus, and we have Green Mark Platinum, right? So now with SLE as the common landing, Green Mark mandatory, which was what we had before, becomes super low energy. Gold Plus becomes a Gold Plus super low energy building. Platinum becomes a Platinum super low energy building, right? So what it means is that for new buildings, you have to be a super low energy building. Yeah, if you are beyond a certain area or you pass a certain set of criteria, then you have to be a super low energy building. Okay, let's remark 202. Okay, so sustainability sections, there's flexibility built in. There are no prerequisites. You just need to achieve the number of points which demonstrate a good breadth and depth of sustainability measures being tackled of relevance to the project. Okay, so I think scoring, we will not go into it, right? You can leave it to when you go out and practice. And I think for now, we can just look at it in terms of principle and examples, right? If you are looking at how a building has achieved such a high Green Mark rating. Okay, at a glance, it is a modular system which allows for easy update. Yeah, so each individual module itself, right, can be continually improved. Right, so same goes for the code of practice, right? So how the industry works is that we have, for example, you have something like a system that we're rolling out, right? We always have a supporting code of practice. Okay, so you can, where all the information of how to comply with and how to use that particular vehicle is all spelled out. And so far, all the code of practice, right, has been very clear, right? And it's been very clear. A lot of work put inside. It has been improved throughout the years. In fact, right. So if you're thinking of what are the principles of CFD design, if you're thinking about energy modeling, right, actually you can just download the code of practice and take a look. So this shows the sustainability outcomes, matrix, and standards, and how they are grouped together. right? So to achieve Green Mark certification, the requisite levels of energy efficiency that's required, right, together with the points scored across the section. Okay, so once again, we are just stopping at the principle level, right? Principle as well as practical application level. We are not going to the scoring. We can leave that to when you go out and work. For energy efficiency, so energy efficiency is now harmonized, right? It's a harmonized compliance pathway for both new and existing buildings, because the system before was like two separate forms, right? So if you are building a new building, you take the first form, and then you tick, and you score it. If you are doing modifications to existing building, you take the second form, and then tick, and you score it, and you get the Green Mark scoring that you have achieved, right? So now under Green Mark 2021 is designed to be more flexible and harmonized. So there are three pathways, right? Either you go for pathway 1, EUI, pathway 2, fixed matrix, or pathway 3, energy savings, right? You have to demonstrate the energy savings. Okay, so for the purpose today, you need not go into detail, right? Just be aware of the fact that it's harmonized and it's three separate pathways, and how the three separate pathways functions, right? It's not necessary to go to this depth when you are analyzing your case study. Okay, you can stop at the principle level, right? But if there is some information that you have found in your research and you wish to share it, right, please go ahead as well. Okay, so for example, in this chart, right, this is very typical. Like if you open a code of practice, it's kind of simplified in this kind of table form. So what is the building type? Commercial, educational, healthcare, others, industrial, residential, right? Which pathway are you going for? 1, 2, or 3, and what are the performance metrics that you have to fulfill? So this is just to share how you use the code of practice. Okay, so for example, if you are designing a building and you have opted for pathway 2, right, then you will bring you to pathway 2. You are using fixed matrix. Okay, so you can see whether you're going for Gold Plus, Platinum, or SLE. What are the performance metric that you have to fulfill? This is just for sharing for your awareness. Once again, you need not go into this level of detail when you're doing case study. Okay, focus more on the principle level and the design at the design level. Right, these are more fruitful because you guys are still students. Okay, pathway 3, energy saving. So you have to make a point of comparison, like understand what is the current code level, what is the minimum level, and then you have demonstrate that the way that you have designed for the buildings, right? All the fitments are going to take how much energy saving as compared to the baseline of the current code. Okay, super low energy buildings. Once again, for energy efficiency, 3 separate pathways. Pathway 1 is using EUI. And for example, for residential projects, if you're opting for pathway 2 and you are designing let's say a high-rise condominium or apartment, right? You can open up and it will show you the requirements, like how you have to show that you have reduced the heat gain of 20 watts per meter square, and the unit layout 60% have effective ventilation. So effective ventilation, how do you measure it? That is the question we will address in subsequent lectures. Okay, so for example, like aircon system, you have to show them that all of them are 5 ticks, right? Equipments are all 5 ticks. Ventilation, common corridors, 100% above ground corridors are all naturally ventilated, right? Lift, you're using regenerative drive, and the lighting power budget, with 60% savings, the prescribed performance, right? Show the light fitting, right, and how much energy saving it has, and whether the way that you have grouped and designed your light, are there additional savings demonstrated, right? For example, one common thing is that throughout the daytime, maybe like just 40% of the lights need to be on in the lift lobby. You need not have 100% because you have daylight, right? So it's only after like 7 p.m. that you have more lights coming on. Okay, so that is one way you can improve lighting power budget. Okay, so things like mechanical ventilation, controls for common area lighting, ventilation and systems, usage of renewable energy, right, to offset X amount of percentage of listed common facilities in development, right? For example, like clubhouses, function rooms, swimming pools, gyms, right? All these can use renewable energy. HW stands for health and well-being. Okay, so these principles actually good for you guys to reference. And take note of them and see whether you have addressed them in your design. So actually when you're doing your site visit, right, this is one of the important things that you can observe when you are in the space, right? Because you are a physical body in the space, right? So I mean that's the difference, physiological effects, psychological effects, sociological effects, right? These are things that you can only observe when you are in the space, right? Then you can observe through time, right? That's why I think because of the social media age, right, that we are in nowadays, right, we tend to experience a lot of architecture through like laptops, our devices, right, and social media, right? But the thing about architecture is that there is a component, and a very sizable component, right? Actually, not sizable. The experience of architecture, of good architecture, can really be done only in person. Yeah, so it's not about like how nice a space or a building looks in IG. Yeah, so like if you use Midjourney, you can generate a very nice interior, very nicely rendered, right? But it cannot beat the experience of being in a physical space, lah. Yeah, so if you guys are still into architecture or practicing in future, right, you will please go and travel, lah. You go and travel. The good thing about Singapore is that the built environment has improved, lah, quite a bit, right, over the years. So a lot of good examples, right, which a lot of them you're going to visit for your case study. Yeah, but take the opportunity to travel overseas as well, experience the works of the master architects, right? It's really something else to experience them in person. Okay, so these are some of the points you can pay attention to when you are visiting the case studies. Okay, so this module is co-created, right? Actually, one beautiful thing about Singapore, right, is that when we roll out initiative, it's usually a collaboration between agencies. Yeah, it's not that BCA will just roll it out, or they come up with a Department of Sustainability and then they just roll it out. Right, BCA will take the lead, right? But they will consult MOH, HPB, NEA, and MOM as well, right? And then they will consult Center for Livable Cities, which is a think tank. Okay, not sure whether they are a think tank, but they're under URA, but they are looking at more innovative solutions, right? And learning from other countries. So all of them coming together to come up with this module itself. Right, so there's a very diverse input across disciplines, right, including medical professions, right, and it includes learning from the pandemic itself and how to build like long-term health and wellness within buildings, right? So we are better prepared for the next pandemic or other emergencies. Okay, so WELL certification, there is correlation to the health and wellness component of Green Mark 2021 as well. Right, so it has some relationship and recognition of WELL, which is a healthcare kind of rating, Okay, so it's not like in isolation just for a built environment, right? It has certain relationship to something that's used to certify healthcare standards. Okay, whole life carbon. Embodied energy, constructions, what methods you use, what products you use, what material you use, how you have conserved the existing structures, and how do you fit out the space, right? Those are the categories. So, for example, like constructions, a lot of times we're building new buildings, but for example, if you are doing, okay, because Singapore is, we have shortage of land, so a lot of projects will be actually additions and alterations to existing. So do you tear down the entire building, or is there a chance to reuse some of the concrete structures, right? If you can reuse, that's a very good point. And another example, for example, if you have to tear down certain parts of the building, right? So you demolish it. On site, you can actually crush the concrete into smaller pieces, right? You can't use that for the new building, but you can use it as, for example, the base for your driveway. Yeah, so it need not, you need not waste the energy to crush it, then transfer it and dispose it somewhere else where you have to find additional space, right? You can use it, you can process it on the site itself and reuse it on the site itself, right? So this is one good way to conserve resources in a construction site. Just sharing for awareness. So, embodied carbon, transition plans and tenancy offset. So if you are retrofitting a space, what products you use, how they perform, throughout how it's maintained, all have implication to the whole life carbon module. Okay, I think this is the last module itself. RE for resilience. Okay, so under resilience you have the subcategories protection, management, and restoration. Okay, so once again we are stopping at principle level and looking at learning at the physical applications, right? So you can use these subcategories to organize your observations during your site visits. Okay, some examples of the measuring, the metrics to measure it. You need not go into detail, this level of detail, right? This is just for your awareness. It's sufficient to stop at the slide before and give critical analysis to your own observations of the particular project. Okay, resilience, LBC certification. This petal certification, so you can see that it has certain relationship to greenery and landscape design. Okay, for maintainability, we will not go into detail. Right, it's just because it takes I think quite a bit of industry knowledge to know how to design for it. I'm not sure whether DFMA will cover some of the principles. Probably it will, right? But for Green Mark, we are not going into detail. Okay, just be aware of the principle that is designed for maintainability. In short, we call it DFM. Okay, and allows for smart facility management technologies to optimize energy performance. Just to know this level is good enough. Next is intelligence. Okay, so for intelligence, there is integrated, subcategory data-driven, subcategory responsiveness, subcategory. Right, it has more to do with data, Internet of Things, sensors, and equipment. Okay, so architectural implications, there are some, but I think negligible at your stage. So just be aware of how these subcategories function. Okay, later on when we talk about maybe like lighting at the lecture on lighting systems, right? Maybe we can talk about some of the things that are in the market right now. Yep. But in terms of implications to your architectural design, your DS work, I think it's pretty negligible, right? I've just seen like one example where the student has designed an integrated like digital display system for the facade, right, using data and stuff like that. So, but I think most of the examples I've seen so far doesn't really cover intelligence that much. Okay, but good to know, but need not go too much into detail for this point. So these are the 6 modules that form Green Mark 2021. Okay, once again, I think looking at the principle level and practical application level is good enough, right? Don't bother to go into calculating the points when you are doing the case study and site visit. Okay. So this is a recorded lecture, so please pause and go for your break if required. In terms of activity, it will be a continuation of your discussion, which should have started last week. Right now, we have covered the Green Mark modules. So go and discuss how you want to approach it as a group. Right, you can refer to assignment 1 that's published on Brightspace as well for the discussion. Okay, so go for your break in your free time. Just pause the video. This is recorded, so I'll just move on. Okay, we have been covering Green Mark 2021 itself, right? So now let's take a look at the more practical aspects, like as a built environment, the entire industry, what is happening, right? There is something called SLEB's challenge, right? Do you still remember what is SLEB? Super low energy buildings, right? There's a SLEB challenge. To date, we have 25 developers. By now, it's more than that already. And building owners aspiring to push the boundaries through this challenge, right? There's a Green Mark criteria pilot. There is International Green Building Conference, right? We started in 2018. So almost every year we have a meetup, right? So you can keep current with technologies from all over the world, right? And it's good opportunity for network as well, where you can show your capabilities to them as well. So an exchange of ideas and innovation. Right, so of course there's the SLE challenge and there's awards night, to reward the projects which have performed well, right, for SLEB's challenge. Alright, so on the right you can see some of the companies and organizations that have onboarded. Private sectors, you have the innovative developers, both private and public. You have institutes of higher learning, right? Most of the universities have adopted it. And then you have public sector agencies, right? Almost all of them are onboarded. And from SLEBs, you might be questioning like why do we have to go through all this, right? Doesn't it involve a lot of capital investment? So what's in it? What's the dollars and cents to it? So the green stimuli for economy, right, is sizable, right? And Singapore is the regional leader for green financing in ASEAN, with green buildings taking up 43% of the share, right? And over the years, right, there have been growth in the size and number of green loans for building projects in Singapore. So you can see in year 2017, the total loan is 100 million. In 2019, it's actually 5.4 billion. Right? How many folds increase is that? Right? So green financing, it is something big. Sizable capital flowing in this thingy. Right? Some publications that you can refer to, right, if you're interested. SIA has a green book, right? Talking about sustainability at the heart of practice. So architectural practice, what does it mean if you take sustainability into account, right? So quite clear, concise, written by architects, right? Well designed, right? So you can refer to that if you're interested. Right, where it talks about project timeline and the building life cycle, and is separated into categories as well, right? That falls back to UN's SDGs. Yep. So the last bit, I think as an industry itself, there was some questionnaire, right, that were soliciting feedback from the public, right? Because remember, the community involvement, collective action, right, is one of the components of this inclusive redesign towards our green and sustainable goals, right? So some questions like that we are trying to understand is what do people think about green building, right? What I think about it is different from what you think about it, and what you think about it is different from someone who is totally unrelated to the green to building, someone who is not even doing anything about design, right? What do they think about green building? We need to know what they think, right? It's not just limited to designers, right? Another question is like, what can we do as users, as consumers, right? So far we've been talking about like design. What can we do? For maintenance, facility management, what can we do, right? But for day-to-day usage of the space, right, what can the users do, right? So these are some of the questions that we are trying to have a better idea of, right, through the questionnaire that is open to public lah. So quite interesting. People the answers are summarized and categorized into three lah. So firstly, people want more ambitious actions, right, for green buildings to tackle the impacts of climate change. Quite interesting because they are, you can see the optimism and the amount of emphasis that they put for buildings, right, in relation to climate change, right? Luckily, they don't take the approach like they think that, oh, actually building Singapore so small we can't do anything, and standalone building actually we can't do anything as well. Actually not. Yeah, and it's good that people have the wish to see more ambitious actions, because if you aim for the moon, if you can't reach the moon, at least you fall on the clouds, right? And then if you aim for the clouds, if you don't reach the clouds, maybe fall on the top of a tree. But then if you aim for the top of a tree, maybe you just lie down and enjoy the moon on the grass. So we got to be ambitious and project. You must have something to dream and work towards. Okay, the second observation is that there is urgency that people observe and they express, right? They express an urgent need to take climate actions through greening Singapore's building in the next 5 to 10 years. So there's no time to waste, right? The effects of global warming are becoming more and more obvious, right? So I mean, at the moment is just about discomfort, right? But if we don't be proactive about it, there will come a point in time whereby it becomes a hazard. Yeah, lives will be at stake, right, if we allow the climate to deteriorate to that level. Okay, so what's going to happen next week? There will also be no face-to-face lesson, right? Because the main activity will actually be your site visit. Okay, site visit you can do it OT, right? You need not do it during lesson hours. You can go in your when it's convenient for the group itself. Okay, that's the first thing. Then I'm going to pre-record like what I'm doing today, some content which you can reference in your own time. Okay, so Alexis have shared with me this workshop that's going to take place on next Thursday. It's called Design Your Life, Your Possible Lives, right? So I think it looks like it's going to be a very useful workshop, right, for career planning, for self-discovery as well, right? So it's going to take place on the 2nd of November, Thursday, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Right? Location is 34-02-08, and you can register by this Friday. Right? Attendance will be taken. So for next week, right, I will encourage all the year 2 design students to go for this. Right? So please, all of you all, please go for this. Right? Because career planning, self-discovery is very, very important. Right? Especially at your age. Don't waste time. Okay, so try to plan for it. Go for this workshop, and then plan for your site visit, OT, on time, on target, as a group. Okay, thank you for your attention. So I'll see you again virtually next week, and face to face will be next week.